Hello. This Sunday, Richard Burgett is scheduled to preach on the last part of Deuteronomy 8, which he titled, Lest You Forget. God warned his people through the lips of Moses that when he gives them prosperity in the new land, not to become prideful and forget that he who delivered them from slavery, who led them through the wilderness, who fed them with manna, is also the one who will provide all their needs in the new land. We will sing two psalm settings, Praise My Soul, the King of Heaven, and The King of Love, My Shepherd Is. Both psalm settings follow the tradition of Isaac Watts, who, along with writing fairly literal metered psalms, composed what he called Christianized versions of the psalms through the lens of a contemporary psalmist this side of the cross. Our first song, Praise My Soul, the King of Heaven, based on Psalm 103, was by the Scottish Anglican minister Henry Francis Lyte, who is best known for his composition of the evening hymn, Abide With Me, Fast Falls the Eventide. Lyte published Spirit of Psalms, which are paraphrases keeping to the spirit of the Psalms in his own words, and often include New Testament imagery and applications. Lyte's jubilant psalm setting is more like a summary of Psalm 103, focusing on God's love and compassion and reliability, and our complete dependence upon him and our response of praise. A synopsis of this psalm setting is succinctly expressed in one of my favorite lines in the hymn, Ransomed, healed, restored, forgiven, who like me his praise should sing. Psalm 103 is appropriate in light of this Sunday's Deuteronomy passage, in that both passages warn God's people not to forget his blessings. Our other psalm setting is The King of Love, My Shepherd Is, written by the Anglican vicar Sir Henry Williams Baker, a younger contemporary of Lyte, who is best known as editor of the monumental English hymn book, Hymns Ancient and Modern. He has been compared to Lyte in his style and approach. The King of Love, My Shepherd Is especially fascinating to me. While the 6 stanzas of the hymn correlate closely to the 6 verses of Psalm 23, each stanza draws connections with New Testament images of Christ, the Good Shepherd. In stanza 1, he subtly refers to John 10:28, that we, his sheep, are eternally secure in his hands. I am his, and he is mine forever. In stanza 2, Baker changes the words from still waters to streams of living water. We recall that Jesus pointed out to the Samaritan woman that he gives the living fountain of water springing up into everlasting life. And in John 7, he said, Whoever believed in me, out of his heart will flow rivers of living water. And this also possibly points to the pure river of water of life before the throne of God and of the Lamb in Revelation 22. Stanza 3 refers to Christ's parable of the lost sheep. This stanza is reported to having been the last words Baker uttered before he died. Perverse and foolish oft I strayed, but yet in love he sought me, and on his shoulder gently laid, and home rejoicing brought me. As we reflect on this Sunday's Deuteronomy passage, we're reminded that we also are perverse and foolish, and are prone to become prideful in our prosperity and ungrateful in our gifts that we receive from our bountiful Good Shepherd. And we often stray, but he lovingly seeks us and brings us back to himself. Throughout the psalm setting, Baker highlights the unceasing outpouring of the Savior's love, of the Shepherd's love, who leadeth and feedeth, who sought me and brought me, who is beside me and guides me, who gently laid me on his shoulder and spreads a table in my sight. The table of Psalms 23 points to Christ's saving work, celebrated in the Lord's Supper, with such words as cross, unction, grace, chalice, and celestial food. Stanza 6 parallels stanza 1, that both stanzas use the same rhyming words, never and forever. In stanza 6 climaxes the thought of the unfailing goodness of our loving shepherd, first presented in stanza 1, with an allusion to the Good Shepherd in John 10:11, whom we, his sheep, will praise in his house forevermore. A couple of weeks ago, we sang a new song by City of Light, Yet Not I, But Through Christ in Me. This Sunday, we will introduce another of their biblically rich hymns, Ancient of Days. This title for God appears only 3 times in the Bible, all in Daniel 7. In contrast to the fleeting earthly kingdoms, God is on his throne, ruling in majesty, power, and purity. God's sovereign, eternal reign is ascribed to the Son of Man. Daniel wrote, I saw in the night visions, and behold, with the clouds of heaven there came one like a son of man. And he came to the Ancient of Days, and was presented before him. And to him was given dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom one that shall not be destroyed. In verse 1 of this song, it draws on Psalm 2. Why do the nations rage and the people plot in vain? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed. The Ancient of Days is the sovereign over all. Therefore we need not fear. In verse 2, the transcendent Ancient of Days is also described as being with us in our trials, active and in control. He knows us, loves us, and calls us by name. In verse 3, our Savior King is identified with the Ancient of Days. Daniel identifies him as the Son of Man who sits enthroned alongside the Ancient of Days, who will bring us into glory, where we will see him face to face, fully redeemed and in fullness of joy. As I did 2 weeks ago in conclusion of my discussion about City-Lights, Yet Not I, but Through Christ in Me, I will conclude by reading this new hymn, Ancient of Days. Though the nations rage, kingdoms rise and fall, there is still one King reigning over all. So I will not fear, for this truth remains, that my God is the Ancient of Days. And the chorus goes, none above him, none before him, all of time in his hands. For his throne it shall remain and ever stand. All the power, all the glory, I will trust in his name, for my God is the Ancient of Days. Though the dread of night overwhelms my soul, he is here with me, I am not alone. Oh, his love is sure, and he knows my name, for my God is the Ancient of Days. Though I may not see what the future brings, I will watch and wait for the Savior King. Then my joy complete, standing face to face in the presence of the Ancient of Days, for my God is the Ancient of Days.